Kellerman Show. Max Kellerman Show on ESPN Radio.
Kellerman Show on ESPN Radio. What's up, nerds? ESPN Plus, the ESPN app, and SiriusXM Channel 80, and on your smart speaker. What's going on in L.A. to all the Max and Marcellus listeners? In New York City, the Max Kellerman Army from way back in the day. What you know about that? Are the Giants? Did the Giants knock out America's team, the New York Football Giants? We're going to get into more on that in a couple minutes. ESPN Plus, the ESPN app, SiriusXM Channel 80, and on your smart speaker. You can reach me at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. The Max Kellerman Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. All guests join me on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Did the Clippers just make a mistake? We're going to get into a little Paul George talk in a little while. Be a part of Max Kellerman Nation on the Dr. Pepper call-in line, 888-SAY-ESPN. ESPN Nation is presented by Dr. Pepper. It's official. College football's back. So is your favorite Dr. Pepper-loving college football town, Fansville. Head to a store near you to treat your inner college football fan to an ice-cold 20-ounce Dr. Pepper today. But first, it's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Can the Los Angeles Rams solve the Bill Belichick riddle this time? Oh, the Rams got a defense, better than the defense that Belichick faced in the Super Bowl. And Jared Goff is coming off a good performance. Remember, McVay called him out a couple weeks ago, kept turning the ball over. Goff, you know, like all these guys, Wentz, Dak, Goff, they're supposed to be in their prime now. No more kids' gloves, right? And I apologize to the person who had the article, I don't remember even when it was, several days ago at least, about Jared Goff and McVay taking off the kids' gloves, or I would cite them. But it's true. McVay was like, look, man, you can't be turning the ball over. He said it in the press. And to Jared Goff's credit, he cleaned it up, and he's coming off a good performance. But Goff is not an elite quarterback. He looked for a minute the year they went to the Super Bowl like he was. He threw a pretty spiral, boy. It came out of his hand nice. And when he had the play action going with Todd Gurley, he looked like a great quarterback for a while, but he did not sustain it. He's a good quarterback. He is better than just a starter. He's an upper middle class quarterback. You know, top 50 percentile, but not much more than that. Is that good enough to beat Bill Belichick? This ain't Cliff Kingsbury. It's Bill Belichick. Let me tell you something about Bill Belichick. Whatever you want to say about the Chargers and Anthony Lynn, and Warren Sharp was on this show talking about that was a mismatch in coaching, the biggest one you could get, the best coach versus the worst coach, although Adam Gase may have something to say about that. But it was 45-0. And, yeah, special teams was great for the Patriots. I get it. 45-0. So what does that mean? Does that mean if Belichick had the Chargers roster, since they're more talented than the Patriots roster, he'd win 90-0? What's the point spread on that one? Belichick he's the Floyd Mayweather of coaches. Floyd used to say, you better not make no mistakes. Not that Floyd was perfect, but he made fewer mistakes than the other guy, and he'd punish you for your mistakes. And that is Bill Belichick. He is going to punish the Los Angeles Rams, and especially Jared Goff, for any mistakes. And you know something about the New England pass defense? It's 27th in the league in net yards per pass attempt allowed. Don't let that fool you, because they don't pressure the quarterback, but they haven't done that in a long time. They're 24th in sack rate this season, the Patriots. But, and like that's how you make Jared Goff look bad, right? Like you put pressure on him. Most quarterbacks put pressure on him. But that's not really telling the whole story with the Patriots. The Patriots and Bill Belichick, you know who the coaches who fall by the wayside are? The Mike McCarthys. They can't adapt to the times. They can't adjust. You know, look, Mike McCarthy won a Super Bowl once upon a time, so he's good. He was good. Not great, but good. But he lost his job with Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback. How do you do that? The great ones adjust. Mike McCarthy never did. Oh, now I understand analytics. Oh, no, you don't. Day late and a dollar short. No, the great ones adjust. Andy Reid, Mike Tomlin, Bill Belichick. By the way, McVay has adjusted in his young career. Came out, took the league by storm. The league made certain adjustments. He's adjusted back. But the Patriots are not a pressure the quarterback kind of defense because the league has gone from, as much as I still love having a great offensive line, and I really think that's what it's all about, but the league has gone so heavy into the passing game, right? Constantly the rules changes, reward passing, and constantly coaches have adjusted to that because that's what the fans want to see, scoring. And as a result, you have all-time great defenses where the secondary is really doing its job in a way that's not always obvious. It's not from a bunch of turnovers and stuff. It's because they cover well. They can do other things that aren't as flashy. But that's been the Patriots in recent years. And that's been the Patriots recently, quiet as kept. Big part of their recent success is that whatever statistics you hear about their secondary, recently the secondary's played well. Very well, in fact. Gilmore's gotten back. Now he's really maybe back to what he was. They're missing Chung since the preseason because of COVID, but that's it. Because he opted out, but that's it. And Hightower up front, but the secondary's been playing well. And so what does that mean? Well, look, L.A. has maybe the best defense in the NFC. You could easily argue it. It looks like the Bears or the Rams have the most upside because they have special impact players. And so when you talk about the defense against the pass, Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey, are you kidding? The best defensive tackle who ever lived. I love me some, Mean Joe Green, and you could talk about whoever you want. Warren Sapp or whoever you want, like the famous guys from the past. Aaron Donald's better than those dudes. Let's be honest. Aaron Donald's the best defensive tackle who ever lived. If you're talking about your all-time team on defense, Lawrence Taylor's your first pick at linebacker. Deion Sanders probably going second at corner. Who's your number 3 pick? It's either going to be Reggie White or Aaron Donald or J.J. Watt from a couple years ago. He's got to be in there. Or Ray Lewis. But Aaron Donald's right there, just about as good as anyone who's ever lived. And Jalen Ramsey is just about as good a guy in your secondary as exists in the NFL right now. So they have high-end, special high-end potential. Here's the thing, though. Do the Patriots make their living passing the ball? Nah. Cam Newton passed for 69 yards and won a game last week. Cam Newton's going to have twice as many rushing touchdowns as passing touchdowns at quarterback for a team that's not only 6-6, but really is 2 plays away from being 8-4. A team that's beaten Miami, that's beaten the Raiders, that's beaten Arizona, that's beaten Baltimore, and came a play away from beating Seattle and a play away from beating Buffalo? I have bad news, L.A. I think you're on upset alert right now. I think the Patriots on the road get this done. They're one of the hottest teams in football on the low. Meantime, New York City, boy, the laughingstock of the NFL for so long. The Jets, of course, listen, every city with 2 franchises, generally you have the heritage franchise, the Yankees, and the clown franchise, the Mets. The heritage franchise, the Lakers, and the clown franchise, the Clippers, right? This is the way it works. And sometimes the Clippers or the Mets can come up in the world, but they're going right back down. But the Yankees and the Lakers, even when they go through bad periods, those are the greatest franchises in the history of their sports. And it works in other towns. So you have 2 franchises. A lot of times it's the heritage franchise, the clown franchise. Here's the problem with New York football recently. The clown franchise is the Jets, and let's look at how many wins they have. Sure enough, no wins for the Jets, 0. But the heritage franchise, the Giants, they're supposed to hold it down. Been a long time since 2011. And I've been killing Gettleman. And by the way, it shouldn't take 3 years to maybe get to 500 next year, right? However, let's give credit where credit's due. Blake Martinez, you have guys, Jabril Peppers, you have guys who are balling. I know Martinez is hurt recently, but you have guys who are balling on the defense, and Joe Judge, so far, is trending in the right direction. That looks like an excellent hire. That looks like the kind of Mike Tomlin hire. When the Steelers hired Tomlin, you said, really, Tomlin? Really, Joe Judge? He hasn't even been a coordinator, but he must have just wowed them in the meeting, and you can see why. It's one thing to be a tough guy to your team and to your coaches, right? to your players and coaches, oh, you're running laps and the coaches are going to have to run laps. That's going to backfire if you don't have real credibility, which Joe Judge didn't yet have. In order to get them to buy in when you're doing that kind of stuff, pulling those stunts, they have to feel it's not a stunt. The players and coaches on the staff, they need to feel that this guy knows what he's doing. He's putting us in positions to win. It's not just histrionics. And that's what Joe Judge has done. So guess what, New York football? The New York football Giants just bounced the Dallas Cowboys off of Sunday Night Football next week. December 20th, the Giants have been flexed to Sunday Night Football. Giants-Browns, Sunday Night Football. This is a 5-7 team, but it's undeniable what's happening. They beat the Seahawks. They didn't give them a tough game and won a moral victory. They beat Seattle. It's a hellified defense, and they're doing it without Saquon Barkley this entire year, who, talk about the greatest prospects ever. Saquon Barkley is the greatest running back prospect of all time. Prospect. When you saw him, you said, okay, he's 235 pounds. He's like a real big running back. And he's also faster than even the small running backs. And he also works harder than everybody, right? And he can also catch passes. And he can also stop and start on a dime like Barry Sanders. He's been out all year. And Daniel Jones looked like a reach at number 6. Maybe it still was. We have to see. Daniel Jones winds up just an average starter. That's not good enough. But he's trending to be a little better than that already, and he hasn't been around. They did this with Colt McCoy. Giants fans, and obviously the Browns have been very good this year. They've been a lot of hoopla around the Browns. But Giants fans, the Giants and Browns just flexed. They flexed literally the Cowboys-Niners off of Sunday Night Football. Marcus Spears joins me on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. What's going on, Swagoo?
What's up, Mac? Kel? What's up, Mike?
So, pretty soon I have to decide if I owe Gettleman an apology. I say no right now, but we're gonna see pretty soon. Giants are trending in the right direction.
It's trending in that direction where you're going to have to apologize. Me too, though.
Damn. Oh, yeah, you too. Damn.
It's all good. We wrong sometimes. It's cool, man. Everybody can't get it right. That's why I say keep it 90, and I say keep it 100, because I'm always right.
Right, I keep it 90. No, I keep it 90. But it's not that. What I really hate about Gettleman more than anything is the stupid way he says quarterback. God, that bothers me as a New Yorker. General manager with that stupid Boston accent, quarterback. What the hell is a quarterback? You ever seen one?
I've never heard of it. First time ever hearing of it. To be honest with you. This is
Marcus, you were saying that. Yeah.
This is a good job. This is a nice job by Gettleman so far, man. I gotta admit it.
Well, we'll see. We'll see where it goes. But yeah, in the meantime, you've been saying Dak should not want to go back to the Cowboys. What is this about?
It's about trajectory of that franchise, man. And also the way this situation is played out. Max, everybody keep talking about the money and the numbers. I saw you this morning on First Take. The sticking point was the years. And Dak and his team. Now, Jerry's going to be right all the time in any situation because he already the billionaire. It's easy for us to say that. Like, oh, yeah, this works out for Jerry. And it's always going to work out for Jerry. It's going to also work out for the 31 other owners in the league because they don't need a contract from anybody. But I'm just thinking about Dak's position and how this whole thing is played out. And this is something I've been thinking about for a while. Like, and when I say a while, like a couple months, even when he was playing. And I'm looking at this team and I'm trying to figure out, like, where are they going? And then the more and more I see Mike McCarthy and I see Nolan on the defensive side of the football, I'm like, this team there's no direction. Like, if I was to ask you, where are the Cowboys trending right now, Max, what would you say? They going to be looking for another coach?
Look, but I would say this, Marcus. I would say this. Jerry and Steven are a tick above average as GMs, which is saying a lot because, as you said, he's a billionaire. He owns the team. He bought a shiny toy, and he gets to play with it. Very unlikely that some dude who just fancies himself a GM can average 8.5 wins a game over 10 years, right? So he and his son are doing a better job than they ought to be doing. still in all, it's not the same as going out and hiring a great GM. So he hasn't
Max,
done that.
Hold on
and
one
reason
second.
I think that
let me address what you said about A-Nate, okay? And I get it. I understand it when you say a tick above average GM. Do you know Bill O'Brien went to the playoffs 2 out of the last 3 years with the Houston Texans? He's fired, Max.
I do.
He's gone.
But hold on.
Some of the decisions he made.
But he was – this is the problem with Bill O'Brien. Not as a coach, I agree. He's supposed to be a quarterback whisperer, all that, and he's lucky he had Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson made him look better than he ought to have looked,
Absolutely.
right? But at the same time, Bill O'Brien didn't get fired for being a bad coach. He got fired for being a bad GM. Like, the best thing he could have done was fire himself as GM, right? That was the reason he got fired. Dude, he traded DeAndre Hopkins for David Johnson.
Outside of the Dallas Cowboys drafting the offensive line, who granted has been decimated by injury, they took Zeke. They took Dak in the fourth. They've drafted well, and I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. Like, Jerry and
keep it 90.
Steven are going to ultimately have the final say, and they're going to be the ones at the forefront for when you draft well. A lot of that is Will McClay. Now, I know a lot of people don't know Will McClay, but he's the head of scouting for the Dallas Cowboys. A lot of that has been identified. A lot of the things that have happened and transpired in that organization have been identified by Will McClay. Now, there is no intention for me to take away. I think Steven is going to be a great owner, and I actually believe Steven, at some point when he takes over, will hire a GM. I don't think Steven is going to want to be the GM. Now, I could be 100% wrong. He may want to do exactly how Jerry did it. And is doing it, but it may not be the case when Steven is ultimately the owner of that team. But here's the thing for me, Max.
But do you understand that Jerry Jones may never die? You realize that?
Not.
Jerry Jones already he is the Earth's oldest living mammal. We know that. That's been scientifically proven. He's over 200 years old easily. Take a look at the guy. So, like, he's probably going to outlive Steven. He's going to outlive all of us. I wouldn't look forward to a world without Jerry Jones as Cowboys owner, Marcus. Let me ask you this. Because we just put it up on the screen on ESPN Plus, which I suggest if you're not subscribed to ESPN Plus, I'm not just doing this because I work for the company, y'all. Like, I'm just telling you. There's no better bang for your entertainment buck anywhere. Marcus, I'm going to do a quick commercial for it, kind of. Like, I just got to tell you, I have a friend who subscribed to ESPN Plus because they wanted to watch this radio show, right? They're like, all right, I'm going to subscribe to it. He's like, Max, did you know Joe Montana does a details about this game they played against the Eagles from God knows what? Like, you have no idea the fights that are on there. It's too much content. You know what? Don't subscribe to ESPN Plus because you won't see your family anymore. You're just going to go down a rabbit hole. But anyway, we had up on the screen the FPI, the chances of winning the NFC East. Giants are number one right now, 57% likely to win the division. You think the Giants, because it looks like it's Giants or Washington, who do you think wins the NFC East?
If today, if you ask me that question, I think it would be the Washington football team.
Why?
I love the way the Giants are playing. I didn't know how Joe Judge would be received. And you remember us sitting in the studio in New York talking about him making guys run and, you know, all of these new things he was trying to implement. And I was like, if these guys don't fully buy into that, they're going to have some issues. But seems like the Giants have, and it's a young, impressionable team. I remember, I think it was Logan Ryan talking about how much he felt like Joe Judge and the coaching staff loved these guys, and it mattered to them about who they were off the field. When I think it was Logan Ryan whose wife went through something almost near-death experience. But when I started seeing and hearing and all of that stuff start transpiring, and then you see the way this team is playing, love the direction. But I also love the direction Ron.
Yeah, you could see the way guys like I mentioned Blake Martinez, Leonard Williams, Jabril Peppers. These are guys. A lot of teams have guys like that. They're talented. Is the coach going to put them in the right position? Right. It's not like there's no Aaron Donald or Jalen Ramsey who, no matter where they are, they're going to ball, right? And he has. Joe Judge has put these guys in the right position. And when his D coordinator thought that he was the boss. Yeah. Joe Judge said, take a hike. Yeah. I mean, it worked.
100%. Like, he's done really, really good things. Even, like, Max, I got to say it, even hiring Jason Garrett as an offensive coordinator. Like, that was Colt McCoy that beat the Seattle Seahawks. That wasn't Daniel Jones.
That was Colt McCoy.
So to be able to implement that plan and execute it successfully, and you see what the defense is doing, kudos to the Giants for sure. They playing great, and they should be where they are right now because they challenge. Look, if Daniel Jones hits 3 passes against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they win that game. Like, so we not talking.
By the way, don't let Saquon come back healthy next year with a healthy Daniel Jones.
But right
now, they got this division. If that happens, they got the division.
Washington football team, because I believe that Alex Smith is the difference between both of these teams. That's what I believe.
Right, until Daniel Jones gets back, at least. Yeah. All right, the great Marcus Spears, ladies and gentlemen. Check him out on NFL Live. That is a fun program. Fun and informative. Orlovsky and Mark. That's the lead right in. I get it. I was waiting for my music. I agree with Greeny. No, I disagree with Greeny. He's already gone, and Houston knows it already. Houston's very well aware that James Harden is gone. Max Kellerman Show on ESPN Radio, ESPN Plus, the ESPN app, SiriusXM Channel 80, and on your smart speaker. Last Take is coming up a little later in the show. You can reach me at 888-SAY-ESPN, 729-3776. The Max Kellerman Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. Before we even get to Last Take, which is sometimes your take, we may do an Axe Max segment. Get to some calls. 888-SAY-ESPN. So there's a new team on James Harden's list, is there? Well, according to The Athletic, Shams Charania, I apologize for butchering that person's name. The former MVP, James Harden, has the Milwaukee Bucks and the Miami Heat at the top of his list of teams he'd want the Rockets to trade him to. Now, personally, I don't believe anything till I hear Adrian Wojnarowski say it. Then I believe it. Then it's as good as fact. And the fact of the matter is, what do the Milwaukee Bucks have to trade for James Harden? Theoretically, you could flip Drew Holiday, who you just traded for, and Chris Middleton, who's Giannis's boy, into assets attractive to the Rockets and then bring in James Harden. Would I do that? Yeah, I would. Giannis needs a great big, as I keep saying, needs a great non-big, just as great as him, to win. Penny Hardaway in his prime was not enough for Shaq. Not good enough. Kobe Bryant in his prime was. Dwayne Wade in his prime was. But that's it. Oscar Robertson and Magic Johnson were good enough to win championships with Kareem. Kareem never got any, not even a single one without them. That's how it goes. What about Hakeem Olajuwon? Olajuwon got one when Jordan took a 2-year hiatus from the NBA and Hakeem faced another team with a big in Patrick Ewing who didn't have another great player with him. Meantime, Hakeem also had, a rookie Sam Cassell and Robert Horry, and he had Kenny Anderson. He had a really good team. But the point is, Giannis needs an elite player who can handle the ball and make plays and shoot from the outside and all that stuff, and that's James Harden. But how do you get him? Meantime, James Harden needs 6 consecutive negative tests to return to the Rockets, according to ESPN's Tim McMahon. If he continues testing negative, Harden could be cleared to practice Monday. Harden did not report to the Toyota Center for COVID-19 testing until Tuesday, 2 days after the Rockets held their first team practice. A lot of people are thinking he's heading to the Nets because that's his preferred destination, right? Is that a great fit on the Brooklyn Nets? 2 ball stoppers, Harden and Kyrie, with a KD coming back from an Achilles? You know how many people have ever come back from an Achilles? Breanna Stewart. Who else? Almost no one ever does it. Seattle Storm. She did it. Made a full recovery. Was great again. Won MVP. The whole thing. They won the finals. MVP of the finals. But who does it? Like, so few. Dominique Wilkins, way back in the day. He was never really Neek again. Not really the human highlight reel again. But he was really good. It's hard to come back from this injury as the same player. So then you have KD coming back, right? And then a lot of times, even if you can do that, it's not the next year, it's the following year that you get back to being yourself. So let's just assume a diminished KD. Let's say he's 80% of himself, which I think is optimistic. So start thinking of him more like a Paul George level player than a KD level player. Kyrie Irving already has put all this scrutiny on Kevin Durant because he releases one of his stupid statements saying, I'm not going to, the world has changed, and so I am going to be positivity, evolved, ambiguous statement, but the upshot is I'm not taking questions. Right? So what does that mean? Is that leadership? You know, I was in L.A. for 6 years when Kobe was there. Kobe never ducked the media. Kobe was front and center taking questions, absorbing it all, deflecting it from his teammates so they didn't have to deal with it as much. Kyrie is like, no, don't talk to me. Talk to that dude. So now Kevin Durant has to deal with all this. Kyrie's a team cancer. Always has been. I wish it weren't true because Kyrie is I love Westbrook because Westbrook's just all out all the time. But Kyrie, if you had to say who's the best show in the NBA, I think Kyrie is the best show in the NBA. A single player who puts on the best show. His handles are so fun to watch. He can bomb from the outside. He can score in the paint. He's a great passer when he wants to be. Like, Kyrie can do everything except get along with his teammates and lead. So now everyone's looking at KD. Kyrie's already starting trouble. And Kyrie also over-dribbles. He's a ball stopper, as is Harden. How does that work with Harden in Brooklyn? Now, sometimes you stack the talent so high, it just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. But understand the expectations would be sky high. Meantime, Philly, you see, like when you join a team with Kyrie and KD already on it, if you win a championship, people are just going to say, well, yeah, you're supposed to. And if you don't, there's a lot of downside there. But if you go to a place like Philly, particularly if they have to give up Simmons to get you, and people are like, well, they only win a championship if their stars really play great, then you get all the credit in the world. And by the way, Harden and Embiid seem to match up better, like together, than Kyrie and KD and Harden. Richard Jefferson, speaking of the Harden situation, ESPN NBA analyst, of course, was on Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin in the morning, had this to say about Harden's situation.
This doesn't look pretty for either side, right? You see when these type of things happen for the Houston Rockets, these things immediately, devalue your asset. And James Harden being a player and a human being, but also being an asset as far as, what he offers to other teams. And so when you do this, now all of a sudden the value goes down. Now he's still James Harden. He's still one of the top 5 players on the planet, best scorer on the planet. So his value is still sky high. But I don't know. There's just a level of unprofessionalism, I think, on James's side. And there's a level of unprofessionalism on the Rocket side.
Well, I disagree with – listen, first of all, Richard Jefferson saying what I've said, like the longer they hold on to Harden, the more devalued he is. He loses value because he becomes an increasingly distressed asset. The rest of the league knows they got to deal him. So they don't have to really give them what they would like enough to pry him away from a reluctant team, right? But I disagree about the lack of professionalism. This is what the leverage the superstar has. The owners have the leverage where they can make a CBA that always favors them because they're the billionaires and they're negotiating with millionaires who have fewer reserves, right, in terms of stockpiles of cash. So the billionaires have the advantage. So they get a CBA favorable to them. What the superstar player has is this. He has the so-called unprofessional approach where he can say, I'm just not going to show up. Or maybe I have an injury. I need to go in and get it taken care of, Like there's all kinds of stuff the superstar can do, and it won't feel very professional. But that's his leverage. 888-SAY-ESPN. 888-729-3776. 888-729-3776. Does this game tonight determine if either team makes the playoffs? Or if the Rams, rather, win the division or the Patriots even make the playoffs, right? That's really the stakes. ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance, small business protection. For more than vehicles, with insurance expertise to keep your company moving forward, more at progressivecommercial.com.
Axe Max.
All right. By the way, Paul George signs a 5-year, $200 million extension with the Clippers. What could the Clippers do? They mortgaged their future to get Paul George. I guess they got to sign him, but this dude just goes away in the playoffs. Andy in New York City, you're on the Max Kellerman Show.
How's it going, Max?
Go ahead, Andy.
By the way, we have Art Rush Jr. in common. I'll just throw that out there. But the big mistake...
Art Rush Jr. talking sports. Boy, that was a great show.
You got it. Well, I was a regular guest, as a matter of fact. By the way, the big mistake Clippers made was letting Kawhi play GM. They would have been better off having him join the existing roster with Shai Gilgeous and Gallinari. I don't think Kawhi knew...
No, but he wouldn't do it.
I know.
Wait a minute. He refused to do that.
I agree.
Okay, so here's the you're the Clippers. You can continue to build with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who is a good player, and Danilo Gallinari, who's a good player, and the core you have, or you can mortgage the future, get rid of Gilgeous-Alexander and Gallinari, and get both Kawhi and Paul George. They came as a package deal. It's the only way to get Kawhi. I think you had to do it if you were the Clippers, especially when you look at what was going to happen with the Lakers. Not only did they already have LeBron and AD, Kawhi was going to the Lakers if the Clippers didn't get Paul George, and then it's over. That window of opportunity for the Clippers to take some portion of LA for themselves when the Lakers were terrible for a bunch of years, and the Clippers had Blake Griffin at his best and DeAndre Jordan at his best and obviously Chris Paul at his best, and it was Lob City. That window gone, and the Clippers didn't do anything. They had to do this. I don't think they had a choice. News from Max Kellerman Nation. Andy just hit us up on the Dr. Pepper call-in line. Dwayne in Ohio, you're on the Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio.
Hey, Max, I had two questions for you. Do you really think that Paul George is worth a $200+ million? And my second question is, do you think that Kyrie's going to come back as good as he was before he got injured? Thank you.
I would say this. First, let's talk about Kyrie. Physically, yeah, I think Kyrie can physically be the same. It's not like an ACL. It's not like an Achilles or something like that KD had. But Kyrie's behavior over time is deteriorating. It's not getting better as he gets older. He was a losing player with the Cavs at first, although he was clearly fantastic. But he didn't, lead a team to a winning record, and it was in the lowly East. Then LeBron shows up with Kevin Love. They go to the finals, and they win a championship. But then Kyrie goes to Boston, and Boston functions better without him on the floor than with him. That's a proven fact. Look it up. When he got hurt, they did better. They were better in the playoffs without him. How's that possible? He's such a great player, Kyrie. And then the same thing in Brooklyn. Brooklyn's functioning better without Kyrie usually. So physically he'll be fine, I think, but what about the rest of it? That's the question. And then Paul George. Paul George, is he worth $200 million? I don't think there are that many players, considering there's a salary cap, who are actually worth a supermax. And I don't think Paul George is because of his struggles in the playoffs. On the other hand, don't throw bad money after good or good money after bad, whatever the hell that expression is. But anyway, the point is, once you made the move for Paul George, what are you going to do? Let him walk out the door and you lost all those draft picks? No, you're going to sign him up, even if you think you're overpaying a little bit. And you hope you're going to sign Kawhi up, and then you hope you can put another piece with those guys that makes sense. By the way, the Ibaka pickup was a big one. Ibaka stretches the floor and plays defense, right? He's not just like an energetic power forward. He can also shoot and space the floor. They really need a point guard, though. Mitch in New Jersey, you're on the Max Kellerman Show.
Max, I wish the Clippers had kept Montrezl Harrell and Ibaka. But you think they can pull off a trade for James Harden? They need another superstar. The Lakers got better. I don't think they kept up with the Lakers.
I don't know if Harden works on the Clippers. I mean, you can run him. You can run the point using James Harden. Yeah, I suppose you would take James Harden on the Clippers if you could. Yeah, it would be an improvement. He could organize your offense at least. He'd have to play a little differently than he's used to, though. How do you go get him, though, if you're the Clippers? Your assets are all gone to get Paul George. News from Max Kellerman Nation. Dwayne just hit us up on the Dr. Pepper call-in line. So I got to 3 calls, Roger. All right, I got to 3 calls. I'm going to get to some more. To Dana White about UFC 256 later this hour. You can reach me at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776, the main event on that card. Well, that's a quick turnaround. 3 weeks ago, both guys fight, and they're right back in the main event because of a bunch of cancellations on the card. They have to save the event. That's pretty good. If you blow out your opponent, why not come right back? Meantime, COVID knocking out a lot of events. The Max Kellerman Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. All guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. We'll see tonight if McVay and Goff have finally learned how to solve the Bill Belichick riddle after their Super Bowl loss to the Pats. Don't forget, that was the lowest scoring Super Bowl ever. You don't have to say in the Super Bowl era, just ever. Lowest scoring Super Bowl of all time. Tom Brady, who's clearly diminished from what he was, and even was then. This is going back a couple of years already, don't forget. Rode a defense and running game and played a better game than Goff did, and Belichick coached a better game than McVay did. And they held, 9 points that the Rams scored. And don't forget, that was a high-flying offense. Like, think of the way we think about the Kansas City Chiefs right now, right? We thought of the Rams' offense that way, but they also had a defense. Remember back then, the difference was, like, the game everyone really wanted to see was Rams-Chiefs, because those were the two, oh, my God, you can't stop those offenses. But the difference was the Rams also had a defense. This Rams defense, even though if the offense is diminished, the defense has gotten better. Rams can still play offense, but the defense has gotten better. Jalen Ramsey in your secondary with Aaron Donald up front. I mean, look, the importance of the quarterback position is such that you can never say the best player in football isn't a quarterback, right? But if we were to say who's the best player in football if all positions were of equal value?
Aaron Donald.
Aaron Donald's one of the greatest players of all time. I mean, really, you think about, play this game. You're choosing up teams, right? All-time teams. I get the first pick. I'm taking Lawrence Taylor. If someone else takes a quarterback, great. I'll take another quarterback just about as good as your quarterback, no matter who you take. If you take Mahomes, I'll take Aaron Rodgers, whatever. You take, Tom Brady, I'll take Joe Montana. That'll cancel. But LT gives you a premium over anyone. You take someone else, I'm taking Deion Sanders because there was no one like Deion. I got 2 guys who are just different. My third pick might be Aaron Donald, right? It's my third pick if I was going defense would either be Aaron Donald, Reggie White, Ray Lewis, or J.J. Watt. I know, you say whatever you want. Well, Ray Lewis or J.J. Watt, that's right. That's right. I don't care if it's a sexy pick or not, or you agree or not. I saw what I saw. And by the way, Bruce Smith is in there somewhere too, right? But Aaron Donald's one of those dudes. He's like the all-time great. And he changes everything up front. And by the way, McVay is a very good coach because not only did he – see, if you come up with a kind of a new system, if you're running play action, whatever you're doing, it's innovative, and the league can't really figure you out year one, the first time you unleash it. Then year 2, they make adjustments, right? So the Rams have a down year by their standards recently in the McVay era, right? Now what do you got? Can you adjust again? Sophomore slumps are oftentimes not just like there's a kind of tendency to not remember how you had to take all those steps to get to where you were. You relax a little bit, have a sophomore slump. That's part of it. And a huge part of it is the league adjusts. Just like the league didn't know how to adjust in year 1, now you got to figure out how to adjust after year 2. McVay did. See, if he didn't, then his innovations are just a parlor trick. Once people figure out how you do it, no big deal. But if you have real greatness in you, if you're actually innovative, then you adjust to the adjustments, and that's what McVay has done. So he's very good. And such a young age to be this good. But Bill Belichick is the master. He is the all-time best by far. And by the way, think about what happened to Belichick and Brady. This is one of the all-time great sports debates. going back now, what is it? 80 years? If you go back 80 years, one of the great debates in American sports, like, who's better, Ted Williams or Joe DiMaggio, right? Like, it's one of those things. Who would win, Muhammad Ali or Joe Louis? And later, Muhammad Ali or Mike Tyson? And one of the great debates, Michael Jordan or now LeBron James, right? One of them is who was more responsible for the Patriots dynasty, Bill Belichick or Tom Brady? And Tom Brady set himself up for success. Wouldn't let Belichick hold on to Garoppolo. Went to the owner, had Garoppolo shipped out of town. Left Belichick with no quarterback in a COVID year, by the way, where the defense, two of the best players on the defense, Patrick Chung, two of the top 5, let's say, players on the defense, Hightower and Chung say, no, we're not playing because of COVID. Where the offense, which was, Brady had nothing on offense last year. There's less this year on offense, less. And Brady goes to a place, Mike Evans and Godwin and a top defense and Brate and everywhere you look there's a stud, right? And then he brings Gronk with him and then gets Antonio Brown. And yet, who looks better right now? Who's having a better year right now? Brady with all those weapons at 7-5, or Belichick with zip, with nothing at 6-6? It's pretty obviously Belichick, right? It's pretty obviously. And how does he do it? He makes fewer mistakes than the other guy, and he punishes you for the mistakes you make. And the Patriots know who they are now on offense. They're a run-first team, by the way, with a really good secondary. Don't worry about all the pass defense numbers. Say no. They got a really good secondary, the Patriots, which is kind of the modern way. You have a great – remember the Patriots defense from a couple years ago? From the year they went to the Super Bowl and beat the Rams. What was that defense built around? Pressure on the quarterback? No, it didn't look like the defenses, let's say, that the Ravens had at the turn of this century, right? In the year 2000. Oh, my God, that Ravens defense. Or the Giants in 86 or the Bears in 85. That defense did it by shutting down your passing game with secondary play. And kind of flexible, linebackers. Adaptable linebackers. Versatile is the word I'm looking for. Linebackers and stuff. This is like, these Patriots have a secondary that's really balling right now. And Gilmore is going to be back to full strength, you would think. I don't like this game for the Rams. I don't like this game for L.A. I think it's a 4.5-point spread. I like the Patriots to beat them straight up on the road. Meantime, 6 AFC teams are in the playoff hunt. Which 3 get in? 3 out of the following 6. You tell me. The Pats are 6-6. They have a 13% chance to make the playoffs, according to FPI. But if they beat the Rams, those odds are going to change. Dolphins are 8-4. They have a 41% chance. The Raiders are 7-5, almost a 50% chance. The Colts are 8-4, over 60. The Ravens, the Baltimore Ravens, 67.5% chance. The Browns, 86.4% chance. Browns are going to get in because of their record right now. The Ravens, I believe, are going to get in. I think the Ravens are getting in. I think Lamar's going to catch fire and get in. I don't love the Colts. They have a nice record, but I don't love the way they've been playing. I think the Dolphins are getting in. I think 2 teams from the AFC are going to make it, the Bills and the Dolphins. I think those are the 3, Miami, Baltimore, and Cleveland. Now, if the Patriots do in fact beat the Rams, we'll reevaluate. But those are the 3 I think are going to make it. Miami, Baltimore, and Cleveland. Robert in Virginia, you're on the Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio.
Yeah, I really like the Patriots tonight. I really do.
What do you like about them?
I just think they're building momentum, and I think it means a whole lot to Cam Newton, and I'm really pulling for him. And I just have a good feeling about it. And their defense is playing well. As you said, the pass defense is looking good. And there's no coach like Belichick. And by the way, my father knew Belichick's father, and I got some interesting nuggets on Belichick.
All right, well, hold on. If you call a radio show and you say, my father knew Belichick's father, I got some interesting nuggets. Why are you starting the conversation, I think the Patriots are going to win? What are the nuggets? Spill the beans. Spill the nuggets.
Guess what Bill Belichick was doing when he was 10 years old? Breaking film down for his father. His father.
Spying on people. Wait,
father coaching Navy.
What's that?
And do you know what his first job was in the NFL? This is amazing. See, Bill Belichick's father was extremely popular, and no one knew who Billy Belichick was. That's what they called him, Billy Belichick. But he was the designated driver.
Billy Belichick.
He was a designated driver for Ted Marchibona and the Baltimore Ravens. That was his first job. And so for him to start there and to somehow be at the water table and start talking some X's and O's, somebody picked up on it, and obviously Parcells did. But I think it's an amazing story. And,
yeah, for sure. You know what that gives me an idea for, guys? I think that there needs to be like a cartoon strip, The Adventures of Little Billy Belichick. And I was always getting caught trying to spy on people, cutting little peepholes indoors. Billy Belichick, are you spying again? No, sir, I'm not. Billy Belichick. All right, so listen, Robert's dad knew Belichick's dad. AJ in Los Angeles, you're on the Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio.
AJ, two quick questions. Max, two quick questions for you. One,
Go ahead, AJ. By the way, AJ, you can also make a statement. You can make a statement to everybody. Okay. You can make a statement. You can ask a question.
Well, I want your
Go ahead.
opinion.
The floor is yours.
Here's my take on it. The three worst coaches in the NFL this year, I start with Matt Nagy, Lynn from the Chargers, and Adam Gase. And then I'm going to leave this up to you. Yeah. If Deshaun Watson goes out this weekend and demolishes the Bears, right? Should Ryan Pace be fired first thing Monday morning? I think Ryan Pace should have been fired last year after Kansas City.
Here's the thing. I hear what you're saying. I disagree about Nagy being a top three worst coach. I'd have to think, or bottom three. I have to think of who it is. Clearly, Gase is the worst coach in football, and Anthony Lynn is not far behind. But I think Gase is the worst. I tend to think Nagy's not, because I saw him a couple of years ago scheming receivers open left and right. And in terms of Ryan Pace and the Bears, look, the Bears can never get the most important thing right, and that's quarterback. My entire life, though, this predates anyone there now. I'm 47 years old. McMahon was not great. They've never had a great quarterback in my entire life. Think about that. It's a football crazy town. I'm from New York, and I've lived in L.A., but like Chicago, in and out of Chicago's a football crazy town. They've never gotten quarterback right. But you know what? You can kind of get away with that sometimes if you get the offensive line right. The problem with the Bears right now is the offensive line. That's like, I believe this exact same team with an offensive line, Nick Foles would have won a bunch of those games. And you'd be singing a totally different tune about this team. With an offensive line, if Nick Foles had a pocket to step into, because he ain't scared, and he can throw the ball down the field, you give Nick Foles a clean pocket to step into, it can be a problem. They got some talent out of the backfield. They're not great, but they're good enough. They have some receivers. Behind Robinson, there's not much, but they're good enough. They have a defense. They don't have an offensive line. Even more than a quarterback right now. They don't have an offensive line. Cody in California, you're on the Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio.
Hey there, Max. I'm just wanting to talk about the Rams defense. I hear a lot about Aaron Donald, and he's amazing, but it's kind of the change this year. I think Taylor Rapp got hurt, and I think that the replacement there and some of the changes they made have actually helped them. I think Taylor Rapp's kind of like not very good at one specific thing. He's kind of an all-rounder. They were really excited to have him as a high draft pick, but I just think he doesn't bring a lot to that defense as far as intensity goes.
I would say when you're talking about a safety, I don't know that there's a ripple effect in replacing a safety on a defense to the extent that you would go from, unless you're talking about an all-world guy. Right? If you have Troy Polamalu in his prime, fine. But I don't know that is where a defense would tip. I think really what the Rams have right now to go with Aaron Donald is elite play from Jalen Ramsey. Elite play. You know, you can put him on an elite wideout and shut them down. There are so few actual shutdown corners in the league. I hear you about Rapp, but unless you're talking about replacing a really subpar guy with a special kind of safety, I don't know that that's where a defense tips. Occasionally, like I've been talking about Quan Alexander on the Saints, and how and that's a linebacker. You know, linebacker and safety in terms of order of importance on the defense. To have a star player there is not the same as a defensive front guy. I mean, usually you think of an end, but a special tackle like Donald or a shutdown corner. The Rams have, an all-time – the Rams probably have the greatest player of all time at one position who's dominating the offensive line. And they have, if not the best, a top 3 shutdown corner in the NFL. And I think that's why the defense is different. Ray in Texas, you're on the Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio.
What's going on, Max? I just wanted to give a quick take on your Brady versus Belichick debate.
Yeah.
The true winner in that debate is the Miami Dolphins based on this year, based on the fact that they got a better record than the Patriots and the Buccaneers. So I look at it like Brady and Belichick is irrelevant. Miami is winning. I'm not even a fan of Miami Dolphins, but I feel like they're winning out of both of those two guys.
But wait, why are the Dolphins? So the winner is the Dolphins because Brady and Belichick aren't together anymore?
Exactly.
Is that what you're saying?
Look at the Dolphins' record now.
Well, I would say this. Listen, that doesn't affect how Miami plays all the other teams. The fact of the matter is the Patriots beat the Dolphins, beat them week 1. So Brady and Belichick not being together didn't affect that game.
Who has the better
right?
playoff
I mean,
odds?
If you think that Belichick and Brady would have won,
better playoff odds?
Huh? What's that? Yeah, but they have the better playoff odds because of the way Miami is playing. Don't take anything away from the way the Dolphins are playing. Brian Flores, a Belichick disciple, right? The Belichick coaching tree finally bearing fruit, was considered a laughingstock last year early on. We were asking out loud, did this Dolphins team quit on the coach? We asked, did they quit? Is this the worst team of all time? We asked that early last season. By the end of the year, Miami beat Belichick and Brady in a must-win game for the Patriots. Because let's not forget, you're taking credit away from the Dolphins when you do this. Let's not forget, one of the huge advantages Belichick and Brady had for 20 years was there was never another good quarterback in the AFC East. Who was in the AFC East? Who? I mean, I mean a really elite quarterback. Never, not one elite quarterback in the AFC East. Chad Pennington was a nice quarterback for a couple of years. Wet noodle for an arm, but great in every other respect. And that's the best that ever went against Brady, really. It's ridiculous. So every year, all the Patriots had to do was win a home playoff game. One home playoff game, they're in the AFC Championship game. Then stuff started to change. The Bills and the Dolphins were coming up in the world. The Patriots this past season needed to win a game against Miami to get that bye in week 1 and have business as usual. Then they host a game at Foxborough, they win that game, and they're in the AFC Championship game again. But guess what happened? The Dolphins beat them. And now the Patriots had to play that first playoff game. And they lost to the Titans. Look how that works. So that's not Brady and Belichick separating, helping the Dolphins. Dolphins beat Brady and Belichick together. And guess what happened the next time the Dolphins played the Patriots? This time, no Brady with Belichick. It was Cam Newton with Belichick. They lost. Cam and Belichick beat the Dolphins. No, Miami's not in a position because Brady and Belichick parted ways, and now Miami was coming up in the world, period. Dana White talking UFC 256 coming up next. You know what's not healthy for a last-second main event, right? You got the champ and the number 1 contender. I'm going to talk to Dana White about that. You can reach me at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. Meantime, there's a bunch of NBA news. Giannis says he's not focused on his contract extension with the Bucks. Paul George signs a contract extension, a big new deal. And James Harden expands the number of teams he says he wants to be traded to. Let's start with Giannis.
Right now, Eric,
he said he's going to put his faith in his agent and the team's front office to reach a potential supermax contract extension. But did they do enough to keep him? You know, James Harden says he'd be open to a trade to the Bucks. Would Giannis even want to play with James Harden? Does he want to get the ball taken out of his hands and stand around and watch James Harden dribble and shoot threes? And then what would they give up for James Harden, the Bucks? They just traded for Drew Holiday. You think they're going to turn Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton into other assets attractive to the Rockets? Because why would the Rockets want Holiday and Middleton? They're not about to win. Right? Going to the Bucks is really a non-starter when you're talking realistically about James Harden. So what does Giannis do? Did they do enough to keep him? I think, look, if they make a run, if they get out of the East and make a run at the title, and they win at least a couple of games in the finals, then of course, Giannis should stay, right? But does he sign before then? You know, there's a school of thought that says if there's $250 million on the table, don't be an idiot. Sign the deal, and if you want to work out a trade later, fine. But it does limit your leverage. If it were me, what would I'd sign for the money. I would sign for the money. And if I wanted to trade later, I just wouldn't have as much leverage. I wouldn't leave $250 million on the table, right? You got to be nuts. But Giannis has made $100 million in the NBA. Comes from very humble beginnings and is a very down-to-earth superstar, right? Maybe for Giannis, the $100 million is enough, and he'll make a choice based on something other than another $250 million. Joining me now, Dana White, ladies and gentlemen, UFC 256 coming right up. Dana, you there?
Buddy, how are you?
What's going on? I know, listen, 256, it's like, how are they even going to put on this card? All these positive COVID cases. And then Figueiredo and Moreno step up. You got to love that, because I notice how you talk about fighters who step up to save events. Like you talked about Conor McGregor, you know, like quickly making turnarounds and going up in weight or down in weight. And what that means to your company. What do you think about the or a champion and his number one contender stepping up 3 weeks after fighting on the same card and making an event?
Incredible. Not only do I love it, and it's great for the sport, but the fans love it. I mean, if you're a real fight fan, you love guys like this that just fought, both come off incredible finishes, and then turn right around and fight each other again 3 weeks later. And like you said, it's the champion versus the number one contender. It doesn't get any better than that.
But why do you figure Figueiredo is such a big favorite over Moreno? But like at the UFC at this level, like we'll get to Dos Santos in a second, but you know, like if he loses, is he out of the UFC? Because the UFC is the major leagues. You guys don't deal with bad fighters. The reason guys always lose eventually is because they're fighting one top fighter after another. Is there any fight between a champion and a number one contender where the number one contender should be a 3 or 4 to 1 underdog? Because that's what we have
you're
here.
Right. Especially in the UFC, you never see that. You know, the number one contender and the champion, it's usually closer. But, you know, Figueiredo's been on a roll, man. This kid's an absolute monster. You know, he's been destroying everybody since he's been champion, too. Yeah, I don't know. That's how the odds makers have it. I don't know if that's actually, you know, how the fight really plays out, but that's how they have it.
Listen, when you see odds like that, it really speaks to, I think, the opinion of the quality of the champion. Figueiredo is putting on very impressive performances, and so the odds reflect that. But in reality, we know at the top of the sport, at the top of boxing, at the top of MMA, there aren't that many real, 3 or 4 to 1 or worse underdogs when it's the actual number one contender. Like the gap between the elite and their top contenders is not what the public perceives. And that's why, especially in the UFC, you don't have many undefeated fighters for very long. What about Dos Santos on this card? Dana, tell me your thoughts on that fight.
This guy Cyril Gagné that he's fighting has had 4 fights canceled, and this guy's finally making his 2020 return. He's a beast. This guy hits like a ton of bricks, and he moves like a middleweight. And obviously, this is a very important fight for Junior Dos Santos, who's in the twilight of his career, and an important fight for Gagné. So it's a very fun heavyweight matchup on this card. This card is awesome from top to bottom.
Yeah. So when you say, is it Gagné or Gane? I've heard it pronounced both ways. Are we saying Gagné? Do I say Gagné because he's favored to win here? Do I need to learn how to say Gagné? Is that how it's said? Okay. Gagne from France?
Yes, exactly.
Right, got it. What do you think his future is should he win this fight? What's the trajectory of his career?
He's ranked right now in number 14, and obviously a win over Junior Dos Santos, who is ranked number 7, would be a very big deal for him. It breaks him into the top 10, and it starts lining him up with fights with guys like Overeem, Derek Lewis. He's on his way, to the title.
And also, Tony Ferguson still on the card, right? I got to keep track of who is fighting on this card and who isn't, because these are times where you have to figure it out on the fly. Ferguson is fighting, correct?
Tony Ferguson versus Charles Oliveira. Number 3, Tony Ferguson versus number 7 in the toughest division in the entire sport. Ferguson is looking to get back into title contention here, and Oliveira just keeps setting records. This guy's in finishes. He's tied for number 1 with 16 finishes in the UFC. He owns the record for submission wins at 14. He's also the number 2 guy all time on the bonus list. This guy's won 16 bonuses, which equals over $800,000.
Yeah, for people who are interested, the UFC is a promotional company, but it's different than boxing because Dana White, my guest now on the Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio, was kind of like a boxing guy who was noticing all the mistakes being made in the boxing business and said, what if we had a fighting kind of a contact sport, a combat sport, where we could kind of start from scratch and create our own culture. So the UFC has achieved a dominant market position. It's not like some sanctioning body or just a promotional outfit in boxing. And because of that, you guys, Dana, control at least the plurality, meaning more than anyone else, of the best talent in the Western Hemisphere. So when you say it's number 4 Ferguson versus number 7 Oliveira, right? It's in boxing, that would be like a unification fight. In boxing, when you see the 4th best fighter at a weight class fight the 7th best, a lot of times they both have belts. But because you monopolize the best talent, there's only 1 belt per division. So a fight between contenders is a championship caliber fight by boxing standards.
Yeah, listen, we have a model where we go out and we find up-and-coming talent, the guys that we think have the potential to someday be the best in the world. And when you get here, all you fight are the best. There's no layups. There's no gimmies. So when you become the number 1 ranked guy in the world, you're the number one guy.
UFC, exclusively available, UFC 256, exclusively available to ESPN Plus subscribers for $64.99. Or sign up now to get UFC 256 and ESPN Plus's annual plan for $84.98. Visit ESPNplus.com/pay-per-view/PPV, ESPNplus.com/PPV for more details. Dana, I'm tongue-tied. What the hell is it? ESPNplus.com/PPV for more details. Dana, thanks a million for coming on. Always love talking to you. Last take is your take. Coming right up, 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. I want to hear what the people have to say. I'm a man of the people, Raj. I'm a radio host for all the American people, not just one particular market. Nora in California, you're on the Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio. What you got, Nora?
I want to go back to the NFL playoff picture. I'm wondering why you see the Colts out of it and Miami in instead.
It's a good question. I started the year thinking the Colts have everything but a quarterback. I didn't believe in Phillip Rivers. He has proven me wrong, but they've given uneven performances. For example, the Ravens have been in a bad way recently, right? They went through a skid of 4 losses in 5 games, I think it was. The one win they had against the Colts, and I think it was by a couple of touchdowns. It was a pretty good margin. The Colts are, for an 8-4 team, don't have me believing. And maybe it is because I'm underrating Phillip Rivers. Maybe it's because what Casey Joyner, the football scientist, told us on the Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio, in his bi-weekly appearance, that teams from soft divisions with bad records, almost never win the Super Bowl. And so maybe I'm counting them out because of that. But when I watch them play, I'm simply less impressed than when I watch the Dolphins play. Now, the Browns also don't overly impress me, to tell you the truth, but they're 9-3. They're 9-3. They're going to the playoffs. So the Ravens are only a game back of the Colts. And I think that Lamar Jackson, when he gets going, is going to be very hard to stop. And I think we have yet to see the best of Lamar this year. But, yeah, you could easily argue for the Colts. It's a tough call. Pats, Dolphins, Raiders, Colts, Ravens, Browns. Pick 3.
And I just think Phillip Rivers is,
Colts fan.
He's just getting started. He's getting used to a new team. He spent, way too long with the Chargers. And, by the way, also,
Are you a Rivers fan? Because you're in California talking about the Colts. Do you like the Colts?
I only like Phillip Rivers, and I do like the Colts. So, I mean, because, I can't.
Let me tell you something about Phillip. I want to talk to you about this, Nora. Ahead. Nora, I want to talk about Phillip Rivers for a second. I was a huge Phillip Rivers fan, okay? He came out in the draft with Eli and Roethlisberger, and I'm a Giants fan, and they traded, Phillip Rivers and a couple different, I think it was Nate Kading and what wound up being Sean Merriman.
They traded Eli.
For Eli Manning, right?
Eli wanted out.
What's that?
He wanted a bigger franchise. He thought he was too cool for the Chargers.
That's right. That's right. And I've never been a Chargers fan because they were in San Diego. It's a transient town. A lot of times. That's right. That's right. They don't have the same money as some of the other owners, and so okay, whatever.
The NFL. I'm from San Diego.
Well, that may be, but they're also not. They're also Spanos is not quite as rich as some of the other owners. But the point is this.
You'll know.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But the point is this. I loved Phillip Rivers. He was tough as nails. For some reason, I didn't like him coming out of college because he had a sidearm delivery. Like I was prejudiced against someone with a side. I don't like the sidearm delivery. Like this nonsense, stupid nonsense, right? But you saw him on the NFL level be so successful. He's such a good passer. And Norv Turner had a pretty simple offense, and Rivers knew how to run it. And as I said, really tough and a family guy and all that. I've seen him too many times in the big moment look like a deer in headlights. Too many times. I don't think it's coincidental that Roethlisberger's got 2, and Eli's got 2, and Rivers got 0. I'd love to see him prove me wrong at this point, but I finally gave it up after the performance against the Patriots at Foxborough a couple years ago. I said, okay, that's it. I'm done with Phillip Rivers. So I get it. You're a Rivers fan. I was too. I wish him the best. I don't believe in him with the chips on the line. Andre in Massachusetts, you're on the Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio. The poorest zillionaire you ever meet is funny. Get on.
Thanks for taking my call, Max. Listen, the Clippers maxing out Paul George is the right move, and it represents Jerry West and Steve Ballmer circling the wagons, fortifying morale, okay, and keeping the troops ready for the 2021 season. With this Lakers coronation, my biggest issue right now is with this Lakers coronation, we've forgotten the Clippers, speaking about rich owners, they have the richest owner in team sports, and Steve Ballmer, who wants to build that.
Yeah, but in basketball, you're handcuffed a bit by the salary cap, as in the NFL. But you're right. You can pay luxury tax and everything, and Ballmer's willing to do it. Here's the thing about the Clippers. Ibaka should make them better. But the real issue they had was they didn't have a point guard who was a dynamic playmaker or kind of offense organizer, right? Patrick Beverley's really a 2 guard who plays the point because he's short. He's a 3-and-D guy. He's not